Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let us know. It's always amazing to see how far our community reaches. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on tomorrow's special episode. There's so much more to come, and I can't wait to share it with all of you. Stay tuned, and let's keep the conversation going in the comments. See you tomorrow for another exciting chapter. Jada sat quietly in the sterile hospital room, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. She could barely hear the nurse's voice as it floated in the air, distant and detached. Her mind was spinning, trying to comprehend the words that had just shattered her reality. Her babies, the twins she had carried for so long, were gone. "I'm so sorry, miss. We did everything we could, but they didn't make it." The words echoed over and over, but they didn't make sense. How could this be real? How could the children she had dreamed of for months, the children she had fought for, be taken away from her in an instant? Jada's heart was heavy with grief. She had imagined holding them, hearing their first cries, watching them grow. But now, she would never have that chance. Tears welled up in her eyes, and they began to fall uncontrollably, leaving trails of salt on her cheeks. She didn't want to believe it. She couldn't. It felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. And then, there was her father. His cold voice cut through the haze of her sorrow. "You should have listened to me, Jada. This wouldn't have happened if you just followed my advice." His words, full of anger and disappointment, stung like a slap across her face. Jada hadn't expected sympathy from him, not after everything that had happened. She knew he didn't approve of her pregnancy, of the choices she had made. But hearing him speak like this, at a time when she was already breaking, felt like the final blow. She had fought so hard to keep her babies, to raise them in love despite her father's disapproval. But now, sitting in this sterile room, she felt as though she had lost everything. She had fought for their lives, only to have them ripped away from her. And now her father was here, reminding her of every mistake he thought she had made. The nurse stepped forward, her voice soft and compassionate. "I know this is hard, Jada, but you have to take care of yourself. Your grief is real, but you have to find a way to move forward, even if it seems impossible." Jada shook her head. How could she move forward? How could she leave behind the dream of her children, the life she had imagined for them? But the nurse's words lingered in her mind. "You have to heal, Jada, for yourself." Jada didn't know how to heal. How could she, when the pain of losing her children felt like it would consume her whole? But somehow, she knew that she would have to try. The pain would never go away, not fully. But she had to keep going. For herself. She glanced at the empty space beside her, where her children should have been. She whispered softly, "I love you, my little ones. I will never forget you." And with that, a new chapter of her life began. Not the one she had dreamed of, but the one she would have to face. Alone, with her grief, and with the weight of her father's harsh judgment hanging over her. Jada's hands trembled as she clutched the edges of the hospital bed. The tears had stopped flowing, but the pain in her chest was still there, an aching void that nothing could fill. She had lost her babies, her future, and now, sitting in the hospital room, she felt like she had lost herself too. The weight of her father's words still hung in the air. "I told you this would happen, Jada. If you had just listened to me, none of this would have happened." She could hear him in her mind, his voice sharp and filled with disappointment. She had never felt more alone. Her father had never been the kind to offer comfort, but his coldness in this moment felt unbearable. He had always been so focused on his reputation, so obsessed with what people would think. The only thing that mattered to him was image, what the world saw, what the business partners thought, how it reflected on him. He had wanted her to have an abortion when he found out she was pregnant, but Jada had refused. She had stood her ground, choosing her babies over everything else. But now, in this hospital room, she wondered if it had all been for nothing. "You've embarrassed the family," her father had said earlier, after hearing about the accident. "This mess is on you. I'm sure people are talking, Jada. I've worked hard to build our family's name, and you've just ruined it." His words stung more than she ever expected. He had never been kind or supportive, but this felt different. Jada had never felt so small in her life. She'd been so sure of her choices, so confident in what she believed was right. But now, as she sat in the cold, empty room, she questioned everything. Was it worth it? Was it worth going against her father? Against the world? Just to be a mother? She had fought so hard to keep her babies, to give them a life filled with love. But now they were gone, and she was left with nothing but the bitter taste of regret. "You should have listened to me." Her father's voice echoed in her mind once again, and she flinched. "You think you can handle this? You're just a kid, Jada. You've made a fool of yourself." His words hit like a punch to the gut. She had tried so hard to make him proud, to live up to his expectations, but all of that had crumbled in an instant. Jada wiped away a tear, her hand shaking, as she reached for the phone. She wanted to call her mother, to hear a voice that might offer some comfort. But her mother had always been quiet, passive in the face of her father's dominance. She knew there would be no real help there. She needed someone. But who? Her friends? They had all fallen away when she made her choice to keep the babies. Her family? Well, her father's rejection left no room for anything but disappointment. The door creaked open, and Jada looked up to see the nurse enter. "Miss, I know this is hard, but you need to take care of yourself. You need to find a way to move forward, even if it feels impossible right now." Jada nodded, though she didn't know how. How could she move forward when everything she had worked for had been ripped away? How could she heal when the pain was so raw, so deep? "I will try," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, but in her heart, she wasn't sure if she could ever heal from this. Jada stared out of the window, her mind still tangled in the web of grief, shame, and the weight of her father's words. She had never felt more lost, more broken. Every inch of her body ached, not just from the loss of her babies, but from the crushing weight of the decisions that had led her to this point. Her father's harsh judgment had driven a wedge between them that seemed impossible to mend. She was alone, or so she thought. The familiar buzzing of her phone broke her thoughts. It was a message from a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. "I know you're hurting, Jada, but you don't have to go through this alone." The words weren't much, but something about them felt different. She wasn't used to kindness, not from anyone other than her babies. Her father's world of cold logic and business talk didn't leave room for comfort or empathy. But this message, it felt genuine. The phone rang just as she finished reading the message, and this time, she didn't hesitate. She answered. "Jada, it's Ryan," a calm voice on the other end said. "I know you're going through hell right now, but I just wanted to check in on you. I'm here for you. Always will be." Ryan? She barely knew him, but in that moment, his voice was the lifeline she had been drowning for. He wasn't family. He wasn't a friend she'd known for years. But there was something in his tone, something steady, something real. "I don't even know what to say," Jada whispered, her voice barely audible as she stared blankly at the wall. She was shocked by the vulnerability in her own voice. She wasn't used to letting anyone in, especially not after everything that had happened. Ryan didn't push. He simply listened, letting her vent about the pain of losing her children, about her father's harsh words that left deep scars, and the overwhelming sense of guilt that consumed her every waking moment. "You don't have to apologize, Jada. It's okay to feel this way. You've been through hell." His words were soft, but they hit her like a gentle wave, washing away some of the tension that had been building in her chest. For the first time since the accident, Jada felt heard. It was as if a part of her heart, the part that had been closed off from everyone, cracked open just a little. She wasn't just a failure, a disappointment, or a girl who had made a mistake. She was a mother who had lost her babies. She was a daughter who was grieving. She was human. "I'll be there for you, Jada," Ryan continued. "And you don't have to do this alone. You've already been through too much." His words were exactly what she needed to hear. The weight of the world didn't suddenly lift, but for the first time, Jada felt like there might be someone out there who understood, someone who didn't judge her, someone who wasn't focused on the mistakes of the past. Her voice quivered as she spoke again. "Thank you, Ryan. I don't know how to say this, but I really need someone right now. I'm here," he said simply. And for the first time in days, Jada felt a flicker of hope. The kind of hope that she wasn't sure existed anymore. But she was willing to believe in it, just for a moment. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. And as she sat in the quiet, listening to Ryan's steady presence on the other end of the line, Jada realized that this was the first step toward healing. Days passed, and Jada's heart still felt heavy. She had been carrying the grief of losing her children in a way that was slowly suffocating her. But Ryan's support kept her tethered, a steady hand pulling her back from the edge when she thought she might drown in the sea of pain. She had started to believe that maybe she could rebuild, maybe she could move on, but the past had a way of creeping back in when she least expected it. It was a Saturday afternoon when the truth finally hit her like a tidal wave, knocking the air from her lungs. She had just finished talking to Ryan. He had offered his usual words of comfort, his voice always so steady, so sure. He was her rock, but even rocks couldn't hold back the force of the storm that was about to hit. Jada's phone buzzed, a text message flashing on the screen. She almost ignored it, but something told her to look. It was from an unknown number, and her heart skipped when she read the words. "I need to tell you something. It's about your father." Her breath caught in her throat. What could it be about her father? He was already a source of pain in her life. But this? She hesitated, then replied, "What about him?" The reply came quickly. "I've been keeping a secret from you. Something that I think you deserve to know. Your father didn't just abandon you, Jada. He played a role in what happened to your babies." Her hands shook as she held the phone. The words blurred in front of her eyes. How could this be? Was it possible? The man who had disapproved of her pregnancy? The man who had shamed her? Had he really gone so far as to manipulate the situation? The next message made her stomach turn. "He made sure that you were told the twins didn't survive, but I've seen the records. They were alive when they were born. He didn't want the world to know, Jada. He didn't want the embarrassment of you having children out of wedlock, so he made them disappear." Jada could barely breathe. She leaned against the wall, the room spinning as the reality sank in. Her father, her own flesh and blood, had done this. He had taken her children from her, not because they were gone, but because he couldn't bear the shame of their existence. Her mind raced, trying to process it all. This explained so much. The guilt she had felt, the pain, the regret. But it wasn't her fault. It wasn't her fault they were taken. It was her father's cold, calculated actions that had made her believe her children were lost forever. Anger surged through her chest, hot and uncontrollable. She grabbed the phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed Ryan's number. His voice picked up almost immediately. steady and calm as always. "Jada, what's wrong?" "Ryan, it's my father. He's the reason I thought they were dead. He made me believe that my babies were gone, but they weren't. They were alive. He did this. He lied to me." The words spilled out, raw and full of pain, as the anger bubbled to the surface. Ryan's voice softened. "Jada, I'm so sorry, but this is something you didn't deserve. You didn't deserve any of this. But now you know the truth. You're not alone in this." Her voice cracked, and she wiped away a tear. "I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to deal with the fact that he did this to me. To them. We'll figure it out together. You're not alone, Jada. Not anymore." And for the first time in days, Jada believed him. She wasn't alone. The truth was out, and now it was time to face it head on. With Ryan by her side, maybe she could finally find the strength to confront her father and heal the wounds that had been caused by lies and betrayal. The truth had shattered Jada's world, but it also gave her something she had been missing: clarity. She finally understood why her heart had been torn apart for so long, why her grief had been so heavy and seemingly endless. Her father's betrayal had been the source of it all. But now that she knew, the question remained: what was she going to do about it? She had always thought she was just a victim of fate, someone who had made bad decisions and was now paying the price. But this was different. It was a deliberate act of manipulation, a cruel game her father had played, and she was the one who had lost, the one who had paid. But no more. Jada wasn't going to let him get away with it. With Ryan by her side, she felt like she had the strength to take the next step. He had been there for her every step of the way, his steady voice a comfort when her world felt like it was falling apart. But now, it was time to confront the source of her pain. It was time to face her father. She had waited so long for this moment, so long to understand the truth, but it wasn't going to be easy. The fear of confrontation, the anxiety of facing someone who had been her pillar, her protector, her father, it felt insurmountable. But it was time. Ryan took her hand as they stood at the entrance of her father's house, the place that had once felt like home, now a battleground. She squeezed his hand, needing the support. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Ryan asked softly, his voice full of concern, but also with the quiet determination that Jada had come to rely on. "I have to," Jada replied, her voice shaky but resolute. "I need to. He needs to know what he's done. I need him to hear me, to know the damage he's caused." With a deep breath, they walked up to the front door. Jada's heart was pounding in her chest. This was it. She couldn't turn back. Now. She rang the doorbell, her nerves on edge as the seconds stretched into what felt like eternity. Her father opened the door, a cold, almost surprised look crossing his face when he saw her standing there with Ryan beside her. "Jada," he said, his voice flat, the mask of indifference already in place. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," Jada said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I know the truth, Dad. I know what you did." His eyes flickered, but only for a moment. He was trying to control the situation, to suppress the truth, but Jada wasn't having it anymore. "You took my babies from me, made me believe they were gone, but they were alive. You lied. You controlled everything to protect your image, and you destroyed me in the process," she continued, each word coming out with more conviction. "I'm done letting you control my life. I'm done letting you keep me in the dark." Her father's expression hardened, the wall of indifference cracking just enough for the anger to seep through. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he spat, his voice rising. "This was never about you. It was about our families, future. You don't understand the sacrifices I made for this family. I understand just fine, Jada shot back. What I don't understand is why you'd sacrifice me. You sacrificed my children, my happiness, all for your damn reputation. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Jada wasn't going to apologize for standing up for herself anymore. She had lost too much, but she was done letting him take any more from her. Ryan stepped forward, placing a firm hand on her shoulder, a silent promise of support. The confrontation had been long overdue, but Jada finally felt like she was in control of her own life. She wasn't going to let her father's lies define her any longer. Her father looked at them both, his expression cold, but Jada could see the cracks in his armor. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She had finally taken back her power. "I'm done with you," Jada said, her voice unwavering. "Don't contact me again." And with that, she turned, walking away from the house that had once been her prison, and towards a future she was finally ready to face. With Ryan by her side, she knew she was no longer alone. The truth had set her free. Hey everyone. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey. Now that you've seen the story unfold, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Jada's journey and the challenges she's faced? How did her confrontation with her father impact you? I'd love to hear your insights on the emotional twists and turns that shaped her path to healing. Have you ever experienced a moment in your life where you had to face difficult truths or make tough decisions to move forward? How did you cope, and what helped you regain control over your situation? Feel free to share your own stories and reflections in the comments below. This space is all about support and open conversations. Also, if you've enjoyed today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next chapter. We have a lot more emotional journeys ahead, and I can't wait to share them with you. Let's keep the conversation going. And remember, your thoughts matter. Let's build a community where we can all learn, support, and grow together. Can't wait to hear from you.